Good evening. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Select Board for Tuesday, January 10th, 2023. This meeting will end by 6:45 p.m. to accommodate for the special town meeting that will begin tonight at 7 p.m. We will go into news updates and announcements. Anyone have any announcements they would like to make? I have one, but I can go last. Bernard, you'll have to unmute.
Starting the new year off on the wrong foot. Next week, Martin Luther King Day, we are having the MLK celebration event. I just want to let everyone know or remind everyone, it's going to be an incredibly great event. We have a Pulitzer Prize winning author speaking, Edward Larson, who wrote a book, American Inheritance, Liberty and Slavery and the Birth of a Nation, 1765 to 1795, which is actually a very, very incredible book. It does something that very few histories of the early days of our republic do, and that is to not just talk about the history, but also the history of the great men and the words of the great men, but also the words of people who are usually overlooked, but nonetheless play an important role in the historical process, particularly Black, both enslaved as well as free Black people who both fought on the side of the Patriots as well as the side of the Loyalists or the British, and played a significant role in the outcome of the war and the outcome of the evolution of our constitutional system and the very meaning of words like liberty and slavery, which, as Professor Larson will explain, don't always mean what we think they mean. So I encourage people to make sure that if they don't have tickets, they get them for this live event at the Coolidge Corner Theater. It's going to be very, very interesting, intellectually as well as in other ways. So, that's my announcement. So.
What time does that start, Bernard?
I'm sorry, it starts at 3 p.m.
Great. Any other announcements? I have an announcement. I have a personal announcement, actually, to make. It is with a heavy heart and deep gratitude that I announce my resignation from the Select Board as of February 1st. Changes in my professional life require me to end my tenure 3 months rather earlier than I would have otherwise preferred. These past 5.5 years have been a wild ride for the town. We've seen it all together. Legalization of marijuana, the hiring of nearly every single department head, including our town administrator, redistricting, a global pandemic, and the hardest challenge of them all, scooters. Serving on the Select Board and as the board's chair has been a great honor. I want to thank my fellow board members, both past and present. You have been great colleagues, partners, and friends, and I am a better person and leader because I had the privilege to work with you all. I want to thank town staff. I'm so proud to work for an organization that has attracted such talent. The community relies on you all every single day, and you continue to deliver excellent results. I want to thank our community. You all have supported me, a girl who was not born here, didn't go to school here, doesn't have kids in the schools, and doesn't own property. My resume may not look like the leaders before me, but thankfully, the town supports leaders who look out for the best interests of the town, or at least try. Even when that leads our leaders to take controversial or initially unpopular positions, something I have been accused of more than once during my tenure on the Select Board. With those principles in mind, I want to leave you all with one final thought. Brookline's municipal government is broken. Our town is too complex, too demanding, too much for its executive branch to be headed by 5 unpaid part-time volunteers. This is not a slight against volunteerism or the noble women and men who served on the select board before and with me. This job just cannot be done well part-time. One cannot oversee hundreds of millions of dollars in budgets and hundreds of employees in only a few hours per week. For too long, we have asked unpaid volunteers to dedicate dozens of hours each month. That is not feasible for residents with significant professional or familial obligations. Public service should not be a path to prosperity, as it also should not be a path to pauperism. Brookline deserves full-time, democratically elected leadership. We deserve elected leaders who pour their full energy into making Brookline the municipal paragon it should be, because that Brookline is worth the investment. Are there other announcements before we go into public comment? John?
I cannot leave alone uncommented that announcement, because it's very, very difficult to imagine going forward in your absence. And it is also very personal that we've all developed relationships with you, myself included. People who have never done a political position might not fully grasp the complexity of having a personal and political relationship intertwined. But the essential element to making those two relationships come together smoothly and to the good of the town that we're serving is that we settle our differences when we have them, and we agree on the fundamentals, which is we all respect one another and we all love this town. And everything that Heather said in her comments, I think, is reflective of that, and reflective of how much we're going to miss her. And also, I have to say, you may well, history may show that you really made your mark on this town by your focus on that issue, that's a central issue of whether we are at a sort of a hinge moment in history where we're facing the reality that our form of government doesn't really work for us in the way it should. I won't get into the details of that, but there will be more to come on that subject. And in years to come, we may be talking about it all started when Heather decided enough of talk. Let's see if they're actually, this is the time to do something about this. So thank you, Heather. And I know we've got a lot on the agenda, so I'll cut it short at that. So it has been a distinct honor and pleasure to serve with you.
Thank you so much, John. Any others? I'm sure there will be another opportunity to wish me well, but we do have a jam-packed agenda.
Mhm.
So let's go into public comment. Thank you, John.
Oh, and that means I got to read my script here. Thank you very much. That's another thing about Heather. She tolerates me every single week forgetting I'm supposed to do this. So the gist of the announcement is that public comment is for the public, obviously. There's a few rules to share. Each person speaking is limited to 3 minutes. You don't need to use the entire time. You may, if you like, please refrain from personal attacks and from addressing personnel issues during your comments. Members of the public sometimes raise questions. We may be able to provide an answer. More likely, we'll work with staff to get a thorough answer and respond over email. We'll let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining and when your time is up. And if you have more to say at that time, you can send an email to board members expressing your thoughts. Devin, who is first on the list?
The first person signed up for public comment is Will Walker. You've been promoted to a panelist. You can unmute and share your video if you're comfortable, and your 3 minutes will begin.
Hello, Select Board. My name is Will Walker, and I'm a Brookline police officer. I began working for the Brookline Police Department as an intern when I was a 19-year-old college student. After working here and meeting some of the amazing people, I knew that becoming a Brookline police officer was what I wanted to do. I was officially sworn in as a Brookline police officer in 2014. It was one of the proudest days of my life. However, in the past few years, the pride I feel has been overshadowed by the stress and the burden of this job on my family and on me. Because Brookline police officers are not paid a wage that is competitive with any agency in the Metro Boston area, officers are leaving our department in droves to become police officers in other communities. The remaining officers are left to cover the increasing levels of mandatory overtime. This has been going on for way too long. I've heard the issue raised many times at previous select board meetings, but I haven't seen the action to address it. There are real consequences to this inaction. You may not feel these consequences, but I do, and so do my wife and children. Each time I'm forced to work a mandatory overtime, my family suffers. My wife is forced to be a single parent. My children are forced to go sometimes days only seeing me on FaceTime. The quality of my life and the life of my family suffers, as is the case for so many other Brookline police officers. And you, as a select board, have the opportunity to make real positive change. My brother and sister officers, your officers, are suffering and nothing is being done. Our families feel this pain most of all. They are the ones who have to pick up the slack when we are not there. The men and women that I work with provide safety, security, and a sense of community to a town whose executive body hasn't shown up for us and given us the support we desperately need in this climate. Week after week, month after month, people have spoken to the board and urged you to take steps to repair the damage you have caused. And it's time for you to step up and take action. We are in the middle of a recession and yet have gone 2.5 years without even a cost of living increase. We have gone more than 2 years without stable leadership at the top of our department. It sometimes feels like in order to do what's best for ourselves and our families, we need to leave this department, which is a shame because, as I mentioned, my role has been an incredible source of pride. I've heard board members say they respect our work and our dedication to the town of Brookline, but those words feel empty. As I and my fellow officers need to put the well-being of our families first, we want to avoid having to make difficult decisions about whether or not Brookline Police is the department for us.
You have 30 seconds.
Thank you.
The next person signed up for public comment is Marty Rosenthal. You can unmute and your 3 minutes will begin. Marty, are you ready to make your public comment?
I already did, but didn't, I guess I was still muted. Am I all set now?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that. Marty Rosenthal, town meeting member, precinct 9, former select board member and co-chair of Brookline PAC, speaking about the chief selection process. With my title of this speech from a well-known expert, Yogi Berra, it's deja vu all over again is what I fear. On April 5th, I spoke here criticizing the last chief process, entitled Bad Process, But What's Next? A week earlier, I was here too, entitled Chief Anointment Process. Chaz Carey's memo mentions three times transparency, but ignores the same twofold 800-pound gorilla issues that not only got ignored, but actually were flouted last spring. For both of the following gorilla reasons, I urge some open discussion, not private hidden thoughts that may be at odds with our very thoughtful and well-informed community's values. As the board agreed in the 1987 Police Community Relations Report that some naysayers still denigrate, it isn't easy to define the police commissioner's role, including as the elected representatives of the community's fundamental values. So first, that memo mentions difficult questions about policing in Brookline, and it's simply impossible to please everyone. I beg to differ. My first gorilla is his community's overwhelming appreciation, this community's appreciation of our excellent and always improvable and improving police department. In fact, I'm chagrined that the screening committee has one member who voted for defunding the department and rejecting the 2.5% bargain salary increase. But not only have many of us been outspoken to the contrary of those votes, but the voters have spoken as well last May and last September. So does the search reflect that sentiment? Last time it truly did not, and it truly and horribly was ill-advised, not just ignoring, but flouting that guerrilla issue. And also number two, to what extent does an inside candidate get preference? One select board member referred to that idea as nepotism. I disagree. Given that an outsider is far less known to us, that he, she, they doesn't know our town, making community policing a big challenge, and is horrible for department morale, which is
You have
already
30
pathetic.
seconds.
There are only two possible reasons to make that mistake last spring. The department needs a shakeup, or there are no excellent insiders. Neither is the case now. I often quote John Adams, facts are stubborn things. Now I add, for last spring's process and the values that entered into it, the last three words of Bridge over River Kwai. Does anyone remember? Madness, madness, madness. Please don't do it again.
The next person signed up for public comment is Carolyn Thal. You've been promoted to a panelist. You can unmute and share your video if you're comfortable, and your 3 minutes will begin.
Hi, Carolyn Thal. I'm a town meeting member in precinct 16. I'm planning to say a few things here about a later agenda item, the Hancock Village waiver, because it's not clear whether that's a public hearing and comment would be taken during that agenda item. Can somebody just clarify whether I should go now or wait?
Go now.
Okay, thank you. And can that not count towards my time, Devin? Thanks. So the Hancock Village waiver, I'm actually really disappointed that we're still here talking about this. 3 weeks later, people have been very patient, people have been very reasonable, polite. But at a certain point, we really have to ask, why is the select board, why is the town trying to solve a private corporation's problems? Why do you owe them anything? We are the voters, we are the residents. A little hokey here, but we are the people. The job here is to serve and protect people, not serve and protect private interests. We shouldn't have to negotiate this. What difference does it make if Chestnut Hill Realty doesn't like your decision or is upset? I suppose they're probably threatening litigation at this point, but we've got several hundred residents who are going to have their rights stomped on. So there's that for us all to think about and look at. Just going to look at the, we've got some process problems. I do not believe that this meeting or the prior public hearing was noticed by the town to abutters. So I don't know if we should even be here. It also appears that actually it should be the ZBA that is making a determination about work hours. So this just seems to get messier and messier. We have not had an opportunity to properly negotiate potential compensation for residents should you decide to grant this waiver. So I just feel like we're really dealing with a lot of problems still here. I'm going to read from the actual bylaw that was the waiver was requested for in Mark Levin's letter, I think December 12th. Special permit exemption from the noise bylaw. Special permit can be granted when it can be demonstrated that limiting the noise would create an undue hardship on a person or the community. So not a billion-dollar corporation. So it's interesting that this would actually harm a person and the community, many people and the community, should it be granted. The intention of granting a permit is again, to protect the community.
You have 30 seconds.
The town will make all reasonable efforts to notify all direct abutters prior to the date of the select board's meeting at which the issuance of a permit will be heard. I don't think that happened. The following criteria and conditions shall be considered. Number 2, additional noise will not have an excessive impact on the public. This whole thing just stinks, and I'm just really disappointed, having tried to really be polite and stick with it. It just really feels like the town is putting a giant corporation's interests over the people's, and I don't like it. Thank you.
The next person signed up for public comment is Samantha McCurd. You've been promoted to a panelist. You can unmute and share your video if you're comfortable. Your 3 minutes will begin.
Hi, my name is Samantha McGuckern, and I am a current resident of Hancock Village since August of 2022. Since moving in, we have endured nothing but constant noise and disruption caused by the Pudding Storm project construction happening directly behind our apartment. Since the day that we have moved in, we are surrounded by constant backup horns, excavators, and vibratory plates smoothing out the ground that quite literally shake the entire house. Since we have moved in here, we listen to daily excavator hydraulic breakers drilling through rocks of the construction site. The sounds of the daily construction are truly brain-shattering and unfeasible to live in. The construction at CHR occurs 6 days a week from 7 a to 5 p.m. Our backyard is filled with construction workers that arrive at 6:45 a.m. sharp on Saturdays as well, blasting music from their cars. My roommate and I are both healthcare providers who work the permanent night shift in an ICU, and attempting to sleep throughout the day is extremely challenging, as we are awoken by the loud construction and can still hear it over our sound machine turned to its loudest settings. The lights from the trucks on the construction site shine into our windows despite having blackout curtains. CHR presented the map to show which apartments would qualify for rent compensation with the extended concrete pour. It appears that although the Pudding Storm project is in our backyard, we do not qualify for rent compensation. This shocks me, as the apartment adjacent to us is qualified and the noise is the same. We have been nothing but polite and quite frankly tolerable of the construction thus far, and we have consistently voiced our opinions to be compensated for unlivable conditions, only to be told that we are allowed to break our lease if we are unhappy. Many of the families directly behind us and located in closest proximity to the Pudding Storm project do not speak English and likely lack the cultural tools necessary to properly advocate for oneself in this specific situation. It is extremely unsettling knowing that families are dealing with similar and potentially worse experiences, but are unable to speak up based on language barriers. CHR must do better for their residents. If they won't, then you should, Brookline Select Board. If you approve this waiver, it will be causing us more hardship than we already have endured. I ask that the board do not approve of the extended waiver and leave the residents of Hancock Village with the only peace and quiet they have overnight. Thank you.
I have 2 people on the attendee list who have raised their hand. I'm going to attempt to promote them. The first is Rachel Kanar. You've been promoted to a panelist. You can unmute and your 3 minutes will begin.
You'll have to unmute.
Hi, is it possible for me to share a photo, share screen?
Yes.
Okay. Can you see this photo?
Yes.
This is the photo that out Samantha's window. Samantha sent that photo to me. I wanted her to share it, but she didn't send it. This is a photo of out the window. You can see the window frame here. This is just the living room window, so that you understand that that is the situation for somebody who is not in the affected area. So what I wanted to say is, I am of course a Hancock Village resident, and I am speaking one about the fact that the map that was distributed about people that are in the affected area, I think does not include at least 50% or more of people who are directly impacted. And I'm not even counting myself. I live across the street. I hear the backup horns, but this is not my view. Anyone who has this view or who can see the construction from their window should be considered affected without question. And my basic question for this board, or what I would like to say, is no one is suggesting a halt to construction during legal work hours. I also want to say, I believe that I'm speaking on behalf of the Afghan and Venezuelan refugees that I know that live on the edge of the pit, that were put there by Jewish Family and Children's Services and some other local service organizations that I have worked with before. So there are a number of people that we don't hear from because they don't have the capacity to speak for themselves, but they live in a worse situation than Samantha. My question is, do residents of Hancock Village have less legal rights than other residents of Brookline? This has come up for me repeatedly. And I appreciate that we now have a liaison with Mike Yanovich, because previously when I would bring up these issues, I was just told that this is private property. And I say this with humor, but it made me wonder if, like, I live on the fiefdom of Chestnut Hill Realty, if I'm just a serf on the fiefdom of Chestnut Hill Realty, and that I the rights of a Brookline resident. And I encourage you to come and visit the property and see the plan that you approved and what of it has been kept. I'm interested if there's any accountability to keeping to them to this plan. How would that be kept? I haven't seen accountability to the original plan. And my last question to you is to all of you select board members, if this was the view out your window, would you be able to vote yes on this noise waiver? If this was your window?
The next person signed up for public comment is Mansa Ansusa. You can start your 3 minutes now.
Hello, my name is Mansa Anjushev. I live on Sherman 37. I've been living there since June 2021. I'm gonna echo Rachel Canner that was just presented. I completely agree with the first, I would say I have 2 points. Like, first, ask yourself whether you would vote yes for this noise waiver if you were living in Hancock Village. And second, if your answer is yes on that first question, whether you consider the compensation plan they presented last week to residents of Chestnut Hill is fair. And what I mean by fair, as Rachel just mentioned, there are a lot of residents who are very close to the construction, but they not even in any compensation plan. I know there is like one list of units that gonna get some hotel, or another list of units that gonna get like debit cards. But let me share my screen. I don't know if I can do that. Probably I can. Do you see my screen? Can you shake your head? Yes. Okay, so as you can see, so green units here, sorry for bad quality, that the picture I was getting, they're gonna get like a hotel or free rent for specific days only, not even like 3 months rent or something like that. Blue units gonna get prepaid debit cards. I live in this block, and 1 second, this is view from my window. I see construction, and as all neighbors in my block, they also can see it, and we're not in the list. Also, in my opinion, at least half of Jerry Road, so I'm gonna try to highlight it if it allows me. Probably it does. Markup, yeah, let's do that. So in my opinion, at least half of Jerry Road, like even side of it, are eligible for compensation. And I would say most of Sherman roads, something like that has to be also considered. I don't believe that the compensation plan that was presented last week is fair. Thank you.
At this time, there are 32 attendees, and no one is using the hand raise or Q&A feature to indicate they would like to make a comment.
Okay, we're going to go into miscellaneous because we do have an agenda item on this topic. So the first order of business on the miscellaneous is approving the meeting minutes from December 15th and 20th. Any objections to take them together? Seeing none, I will move approval of the meeting minutes for our meetings on the 15th and the 20th. All those in favor? Bernard?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Miriam?
Aye.
Oh, just in time. Mike? This is for the meeting minutes for the 15th and the 20th?
Yeah, sorry, my system shut down just a few minutes ago. So I've been absent. Yes, aye.
Thank you. And the chair votes aye. I am gonna choose not to read all of the items from the miscellaneous, and we have had a request to postpone 2 agenda items related to the terrazzo flooring on the Pierce School. Bernard, was that why you were raising your hand?
Yes, but not to postpone it. I just want to make sure that the minutes clearly stated that there are 3 items that relate to terrazzo floors at Driscoll. But if we're postponing it, it's now moot.
I've only counted 2. Is there a third?
Well, the first,
C and
pardon?
E? C and E?
B, C, and E.
That's
So
right.
3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's just make sure that it's clear that these are Driscoll as opposed to, some other location.
Okay. I'm sure that Kate will make sure that that's accurately reflected in the meeting minutes. So I
And
will
by the
move
way,
the-
if we're putting that off, the next agenda should just be clear on that also.
Okay, we'll make that happen. So postponing items 3B, 3C, and 3E. Everything else that's listed in miscellaneous. Are there any comments or questions before I call the roll?
I just know for the rest of the board that on those that we're postponing, we'll have staff available at the next meeting on the 17th to discuss that in greater detail, and we'll have memos in your packet to go into more detail so that everyone has the information necessary there.
Great, thank you, Chaz. Okay, seeing
I ha-
none.
I'm
John?
sorry, I had a question, yeah.
Yeah.
And this, I think maybe Chaz can answer. Isn't 3D also a terrazzo related item?
Let me check very quickly, as I want to make sure that we got that right. I thought that was just a contingency on something different. The GMP contingency draw in various scope additions. No, well, hold on. I do not see any direct reference in the change order 18, which is 3D, to the flooring. The one item I see that might potentially touch on it is the VCT colors and patterns and corridors, which is a line item in there. If you want to postpone it just for the avoidance of doubt, you can do that. But
to answer your question, no. No, my concern was that it was one of these contingency related items that had to do with, getting an increase when there's an underestimate of yeah.
Nope.
Okay, I thought since it was grouped with the others, it must be terrazzo related, but sorry about that.
Right, it's Driscoll related, but not terrazzo related. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Okay, so all those in favor of the miscellaneous consent agenda, please say aye. Bernard?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Miriam? I think I heard an aye. Mike?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Okay, moving into our first calendar item. I believe that is the fire chief offer of employment.
Okay.
Good evening, Chief.
There we go. I got it now. Good evening. Thank you, Chair Hamilton. And thank you to the board for having us on tonight. First point of privilege, congratulations, Chair Hamilton, and I wish you nothing but the best in your future endeavors. Tonight, I'm asking for the board's permission to offer a permanent position of firefighter to former firefighter Justin Offiero. Justin left the department in late 2021. He and his wife had recently had their first child, and they relocated to Arizona to be near her family. So in such time, he was working for the Chandler, Arizona Fire Department, and circumstances have changed for Mr. and Mrs. Affiero, firefighter Affiero and his wife, and they have returned to the area, and he is seeking to come back to the fire department on a full-time basis. Firefighter Affiero has passed the physical and background checks, as well as the psychological exam for re-entry, and was a stellar employee. And when he was a member of the fire department, and I would ask the board favorable vote to reinstate firefighter Affiero to the position of firefighter.
Thank you. Any questions or comments before I make this permanent? Okay, let's get it done. All those in favor of welcoming back Justin Affiero to our fire department, please say aye. Bernard?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you so much, Chief. Good evening, Chief Pastor.
Good evening, and thank you for having me, and thank you to Chief Sullivan for setting the stage for me. I have a similar request. I am here before you to ask for the authorization to reinstate Officer Nick Goon, who was born and raised in Brookline. Officer Goon earned both his bachelor's and master's degrees from Northeastern University. He worked as an intern for our department before entering the academy in 2016. After working in patrol for a few years, Officer Goon took a position in the Community Service Division as our crime analyst, and he gained valuable experience as a logistics manager for the town's emergency management team while he was in that role. Officer Goon served the town honorably and was a highly valued member of our department when he announced his resignation just this past August of 22 to pursue a career opportunity with the Bellevue, Washington Police Department. Officer Goon reached out just 2 weeks ago expressing his desire to return to our agency. I can say wholeheartedly that our department and our entire community are much better off with Officer Goon as a member. So with your permission, I'd be looking to rehire him with a tentative start date of January 30th.
Excellent. Any questions or comments before we make this official? Seeing, oh, John?
May I just quickly say that I had a privilege of interviewing Officer Goon a couple of years ago, and I didn't even realize he had left. So I'm so glad he's back. And thank you, Officer Goon, for coming back. But sorry to hear that you were briefly not with the department. Well, welcome back.
Any other comments before we make this official? Bernard?
Yeah, I know to some degree, Officer Goon, he is an incredible asset to the department and to the town. And this is not related to Officer Goon, but I just assume that we, are aware of circumstances that cause officers to return from outside departments. I mean, that's an issue with police reform generally. And although I have no, concerns with respect to Officer Goon, I think going forward, we just should be aware that that is a step we always need to take when an officer is coming back into our departments. Fire department also. So.
I'm not sure I understand, but I'd like to dispense with this because I really think that it's the right thing to do. And time is of the essence. So all those in favor of welcoming Officer Nick Goon back onto our police force, please say aye. Bernard?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Miriam?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you so much. Okay, so the headliner for tonight, the noise bylaw waiver request continued. I see a number of familiar faces. How do we want to do this? Andy, do you want to, I guess, kind of recap what the, I guess, differences might be tonight as opposed to when we last met, I believe on the 20th
Yeah, you want to go ahead, Devin, and promote Mark Levin and Ray Matrano as well. I want to thank the board again for meeting with us this evening to continue this discussion that we started back on December 20th with a presentation of our request for the noise waiver and our mitigation plan at that time. The board may recall we tabled our discussion to this evening after receiving a lot of good feedback on our plan, both from members of the board as well as members of the public at that December 20th meeting, which we've incorporated into our plan. We were advised by the town administrator subsequent to that meeting that a community informational session would be a prudent undertaking for the purposes of continuing to solicit feedback on our plan, educate people on our plan. And we had a meeting to that effect last Thursday evening, including our abutters and residents of Hancock Village, hosted by the town's Hancock Village Construction Liaison. So we had that meeting, incorporated feedback that we heard at that meeting into an updated mitigation plan, which we submitted to this board last Friday. I believe was included in your packets. And even following that, we continue to discuss internally ways to refine our plan and improve our mitigation plan, which Mark Levin is here to tell you a little bit more about tonight. And I'll go ahead and share my screen. And then just for the board, administratively, we're asking for a favorable vote on our revised noise waiver request and mitigation plan, including what was submitted to you on Friday, as well as updated information that Mark will present on in a moment.
Thank you.
And I'll go.
Good evening. I'm Mark Levin, Chestnut Hill Realty. I want to thank, excuse me, I want to thank the board for taking the time with our predicament. We are here out of necessity to ensure the viability of our project. We're asking for 7 extended work days over 5 months to prevent 8 to 10 months or more of ongoing construction, which doesn't benefit anyone. The sooner we complete construction, the sooner our residents are no longer impacted, and the sooner we achieve occupancy, the sooner the town will receive tax revenue. Since our last meeting, we have been working diligently to shrink the hours to the tightest schedule possible. And we have come up with the following, which you see. So as you can see, what we're asking for is 2 days of extended work now only until 10 p.m., 2 days of extended work until 12 a.m., and 3 extended days until 2 a.m. for the largest pours. Note that the last 3 hours of these ranges are primarily quiet work, which is smoothing the concrete and placing winter protection when necessary. We've added 2 police details to our traffic control plan. One at the intersection of Beverly and LaGrange to ensure that no trucks go down Beverly Road, and another at Independence and Beverly during the hours when the school crossing guards are not on duty. We understand that this request represents an added burden to many of our residents. While we have given substantial rent concessions to impacted Hancock Village residents over the last couple of years during our construction projects, this situation is different because work extends beyond regular work hours. Therefore, we have revised the compensation package in the following way. Those residents that are most impacted, shown in green, will be given rent abatements of $500 for each instance of extended hours. Those residents who are impacted only by after-hours trucking, shown in blue, will be given rent abatements of $250 for each instance of extended work hours. These residents are less impacted since trucking ends approximately 3 hours before the end of the extended day. So let me repeat, those residents that are most impacted, shown in green, will be given rent abatements of $500 for each instance of extended hours. Those residents who are impacted only by after-hours trucking, shown in blue, will be given rent abatements of $250 for each instance of extended work hours. And as previously offered, if someone prefers to stay in a hotel on those nights, will pick up the tab. I'd like to conclude by saying that Chestnut Hill Realty is not the ogre that we've been portrayed as. We're trying to construct much needed housing, including affordable housing. We're also doing good work in the neighborhood by contributing $300,000 to the Baker School Tennis Court project. Chestnut Hill Realty also supports the Baker PTO by providing funding for after-school programs. And our landscaping team is providing ground improvements at the Baker School. In the end, though, this is about hastening the day when construction ceases at Hancock Village, as opposed to extending the disruption for an additional 8 to 10 months or more beyond the original schedule. And we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Can you take it out of presentation mode, please? Thank you. Members of the board, any questions or statements? Mike?
Thank you. So first of all, I would say that compensation plan looks much more, I'm not sure reasonable is the right term, much more appropriate than what we'd seen before. I do have a couple of questions about the construction process. For one thing, the concrete pouring ends at 8 o'clock on the timeline that you provided to us. Why is a noise waiver needed during the presumably quieter period of smoothing the concrete? How much noise is actually generated by that? And would you need a waiver to work beyond a certain point if you're going to generate noise, but how much noise is generated by the smoothing work?
Ray, do you want to answer that?
So it's obviously pretty quiet work because there'll be troweling, but there will be, trucks coming and going from the site. They'll be breaking down the pumps, and there'll be possibly a generator running depending on, whether it's a heating event or if there are lights running to that effect. So not significantly loud work, but just more so, residual work as a result of people being on site doing the finishing of the concrete.
And when you talk about breaking down the pumps, there's a reference in there to wherever possible, avoiding using a jackhammer or a mallet to break up concrete that's presumably spilled over a bit.
There'll be no breaking up of concrete during those hours. If the concrete won't even be set, it won't even be hard until the next day. So.
Okay, so what was that line about?
I'm not sure what you're referencing.
There's a line about in one of the documents that you sent to us that you would mitigate or try to reduce the use of jackhammers or mallets for cleaning up. Let me see if I can find it. Let's go on to the next thing while I'm looking for that.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Just take your, you've got another question?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, there'll be definitely no jackhammering happening at night if that's the question.
All right, that's fine. I mean, it's somewhere in your documents, and what's this about?
I don't know. I don't know what the reference is, but there will be none of that happening.
During the smoothing, you mentioned there'll be trucks coming and going. Are they small trucks, large trucks? Are they backup horns? What are we going to? What are people going to hear as that's going on?
Well, the pump trucks will be leaving the site. There'll be work trucks, pickup trucks, on site with workers, basically taking out tarps or whatever's necessary to move things around the site.
Smaller trucks.
Smaller trucks.
Right, right. How long is the process of breaking down the pumps?
Maybe an hour and a half. It's really just, dismantling, pulling the hoses in,
So that gets back to the question that I'm asking is why do you need a noise waiver all the way out to 10 o'clock and to 2 o'clock for two of these instances?
I mean, we'll be on site, working. I mean, they'll be working on site, and potentially beyond the work hours, it could be a delivery of a concrete truck, depending on the late afternoon traffic, and depending on which pour it is. I mean, there's definitely gonna be work beyond the 5 p.m. time that would be, there'll be louder than normal work hours, as if nobody was on site. So not heavy decibel work, but definitely work.
That's about the best answer I can. That's about the best answer I think you're going to give me. I'm still not. I still am mystified as to why you need to be be there until 2 o'clock. Maybe you can explain the 2 very late nights, and then I'll stop.
I mean, we're mostly looking for extended time to be on site as opposed to this is categorized as a noise waiver, but it's more so categorized as extended time actively on site working beyond the work hour.
Doing what?
Doing concrete finishing. There'll be the whirly birds, doing the polishing, which could potentially be after 5 p.m., especially in the 2 p.m. pours. They'll be doing the final, the whirly bird polishing, and then the hand troweling will be ongoing, as well as the whirly bird actions.
We've adjusted the hours into those 3 different categories in proportion to the size of the pour, is my understanding. And so those 2 a.m. end times are indicative of a larger pour taking place. So more concrete needed, more work to spread out that concrete. And so more time on site past the normal construction hours. I think the request for a waiver for those hours related to noise is acknowledgement that while it might not be concrete trucks, loud decibel trucks and equipment to raise point, the potential, and I think likely potential, for some noise to be continued on site that would exceed or might exceed the allowed tolerances is what's necessitating the request. And so we've tried to tailor those work hours in turn with the size of the pours, and also what's a reasonable amount of time for us to be able to complete the pours as well as finish the finish work on site. And I think we heard pretty loud and clear that that was something that we should look at hard with our contractor, and we did, and came up with a solution.
Also, let me just add, I think that the noise waiver is just consistent with the fact that work is going on. Obviously, if work wasn't going on past the normal work hours, there would be no noise whatsoever. So to the extent that there's any noise, that's what we're asking for, in recognition that smoothing the concrete, some pickup trucks coming and going, laying out heat mats or whatever, it would be creating some noise that wouldn't happen if there was no construction at all.
Okay, thank you.
John, and then Miriam.
Thank you. So I'm sorry, I'm just going to have to ask that we all do a little math. So I heard $500 per day for the units marked in green, or $500 per pour outside the hours. Does that translate to $500 times 7 or $500 times 8? In other words, something like $3,500 per unit or $4,000 per unit?
Well, I believe that there are 7 pours that we anticipate and that we're asking relief for. And the answer is yes, 7 times 500 would give you that $3,500.
And could you do the same math for me in terms of the per pour compensation for the places in blue, the units in blue?
It would be half.
Yeah.
1750.
I just want to hear it from them. That's all.
1750.
1750. Thank you very much. And yeah, but that's if it's 7, and it would be 2,000 if it's 8, right?
But I don't think we're not asking for 8.
Okay, so it won't be 8. Okay,
No.
okay. Next question. There was a person who spoke, I think, I know tonight, I think it might have spoken before, who clearly identified as being in a unit right overlooking the site, but claimed not to be included in the compensation plan. Is that still true?
Well, so we've increased the number of units that are on the compensation plan, particularly along the drive route up Sherman Road. There are certainly homes on the apartment homes on the site that can see the construction. They can take a picture out their window and see the construction, but that's during work hours. What we're talking about is whether or not they'll be impacted by these after-hour incidents. And they're either further enough away or blocked that they will not be impacted by the noise or the activity during those hours.
Okay. I mean, for my comfort level, I'd love to get that question resolved, because they sure looked like they were, almost within arm's reach of construction activity there. And I had one other question, which is for our town administrator who's gone off camera, and I'm sure that's for, I'm sorry, Chaz, I didn't mean to catch you at the moment that was not convenient. There was mention made by one of the speakers during public comment of this question of whether it will even be decided by the select board at all, or will be decided by the zoning board of appeals. Would this be a good time for clarification on that?
Sure. So we've talked to town council about this, and it's our opinion is it's correct that both ZBA and the select board have a role to play here, that both need to sign off. ZBA issued a comprehensive permit. In that comprehensive permit, I believe it's special condition 36, they lowered the number of work hours lower than the traditional working time that would be permitted under the regular town bylaws. So there's specific language in the permit that says your working hours are X. So that would need to be modified. So there would need to be an application to ZBA in order to make that happen. There also, in our opinion, needs to be an application to the select board, because the other thing that special condition says is that the applicant must comply with all applicable local laws, regulations, and so forth. ZBA doesn't have the authority to waive that without you weighing in. They can't go beyond what that number is without you weighing in. So unless the select board also says, okay, it's okay to go beyond the time you initially agreed to, but also to this new time, whatever that time is, if you were to grant this waiver, the ZBA can't do that alone. So select board is still a necessary party to this. So if you were to vote on any sort of conditional approval tonight, you would need to include language that would reflect the need to pend the, they would need to be pending the, excuse me, there would need to be, it would need to be pending a vote of ZBA or action from ZBA to amend the comprehensive permit.
Thank you.
John, are you done with your line of questioning?
Yeah, for now, yes, thanks.
Okay. Miriam?
Thank you. So I had checked in with Chaz earlier this afternoon, and the monetary compensation had not yet been altered. And so I want to be clear, I was fully prepared to vote against this because I didn't think that financial compensation was appropriate. I'm pleased to hear that you have heard what was being said, that you have worked to modify the schedule, that you have worked to modify the financial compensation to be more in line with what is really going to be affecting folks in a very it's just really going to affect them. My issue is I only just heard about this, which is great. I'm glad you're doing it, but I really want to hear from the folks who are affected. So I don't know if I'm ready. I need to hear from them. Is this okay? Is this monetary compensation in line with what would make them feel whole enough to tolerate the disturbance in their everyday lives? And so I'm not really sure the best way to move forward. Can we put this vote off for another week so we can get feedback from the community? Can we put the vote off until the ZBA votes? I want to vote yes, but I want to really honor what I'm hearing from the tenants. So that's where I am. So there's not really a question necessarily for you, but maybe for the rest of the board or for Chaz and Heather.
We can kind of do whatever we want, but there are implications to the project from what I understand. Time is money, and there are carrying costs to this project. So I don't know when they hit a threshold where they either walk away or, who knows. But that aside, I've been giving this project a lot of thought and just trying to, use the two criteria that I listed at our meeting on the 20th. How much of this is really in the community's interest? And then I guess the reputation of the requesting party. And I don't know if I'm there. So I'm likely a no vote. It kind of sounds like there are a few other no votes on this board. We can continue this hearing, but if we take a vote, I don't think that this passes tonight. So I'd like to hear from Chestnut Hill Realty about what that means for you and how you would like to go forward.
Well, if there's not a affirmative vote, then we do have to go to the ZBA. So hopefully that the fact that you haven't voted wouldn't derail that. So we would like to, apply to the ZBA, and in the meantime, hopefully you get a chance to digest what we've presented and can convene again while we proceed to get to the Zoning Board of Appeal, because the time is really tight. We've had to push back the schedule as it is. We've condensed it as best we can. We're really up against it. And so if the two can happen simultaneously, then that's fine, and we should continue it.
Mike?
Yeah, so the one
Bernard?
you would suggest is, I think continuation is a great solution. But I think it's really important for the Chestnut Hill Realty and staff to work out the details so that we have a clear commitment with regard to compensation and so forth. The other thing I would say is I'm very uncomfortable with the 2 a.m. version. And if there's any way that you can reduce that, I think it'll be a lot easier for me at least to consider what the changes that you make in a favorable way.
Well, let me make a point and ask a question. These are the largest pours, and as you see from the other times, we were able to, figure out a way to condense the schedule. So in terms of the duration, we can't reduce the duration anymore. On those 3 pours, though, if you were to suggest that it would be better for us to start 2 hours early, then we could end 2 hours early. But I don't see how it's possible to, at this juncture, to reduce the overall duration of these very large pours.
Understood. Bernard?
Yeah, first of all, this is a continuation of the previous meeting on this issue. And I get the sense that we're moving the goalpost a little bit. So I would like to be very, very clear as to what it is we're seeking answers to before we have another vote on this waiver. What is it we want to hear from the residents, particularly the tenants? What is the issue with compensation, et cetera, just so that we're not, coming back again, hearing from the local residents and putting it off again because we can't really resolve all the issues. So.
Chaz?
That's a great point. I'm willing, if it's the direction of the board to continue this conversation, which is fine, I'm willing to go down to Hancock Village, and I would love to have residents as well as our OPM and a representative from Chestnut Hill Realty show me around the site with the map, so that everyone, I see in the chat, there are residents who say, we're not on this map, but we're clearly within striking distance of the construction, as John pointed out. So to at least have clarity on that, and a clear sense of what the impact is, where the impacted units are, what that level of impact is, if there's the maintaining of this two-tiered structure of compensation. Let's go down to the site physically, and I'll prepare a report to the board about what the residents' concerns are, where the impacted residents are, and we can at least address that. It doesn't address everything, but it's one piece of this that still seems to be open. I think then there are other questions that I don't know if I can answer. But I think this is where, if we have these further conversations, if there's appetite for it in the community, which I think is the most important thing, then I'm willing to continue to try and facilitate this and go down myself to try and figure this out.
I appreciate that, Chaz. So for me, like Mike, the 2 a.m. is not great, though I don't think I would like starting at 2 a.m. and ending earlier. So I don't know what the solution is there. I also am a little, I have reservations about the catchment area for compensated residents. I just don't know whether or not it includes everyone who really is impacted by this project. So in the words of the Supreme Court, I'll know it when I see it. So I think we can try to work offline, but at least for me, I need to hear from a lot of residents that they are willing to be affected given everything that is on the table. Bernard?
Yeah, I admit that I don't live in the area, and although I have in the past lived around construction sites, I don't really have the same understanding of what the residents are facing. But I'd also like to make sure that we're clear as to what impact means. I mean, the fact that someone can see a construction site may not, yeah, I'm wrong, but may not be the type of impact that we should be making our votes on the basis of, or making our decisions on the basis of. I mean, that may be a more complicated issue than I'm presenting it, but I think that we need to be clear as to what it is that we're talking about in terms of impact, and who impacted in what ways should be subject to compensation.
You're entitled to that opinion, Bernard, but
It's not
from that
opinion,
photo
just
that
asking for what, just asking, what is it we're looking for?
Well, that's
Oh.
complicated. There are 5 of us that make up this board. And from that photo that I saw, there is absolutely nothing protecting noise vibrations or
The
just
photo
noise.
had no noise. The photo did not have sound. It was just a picture. So then that's what I'm asking. Does
We
the
will
fact
have
that-
to agree to disagree, Bernard.
Nothing to disagree about, but okay, go ahead.
Mike?
All right, so I was going to be silent on this, but Bernard, the photograph was taken, it wasn't taken with a telephoto lens. There's sort of an implication that I got that, well, you just because you can see the site, there's no noise. That photo was taken probably with an iPhone. The frame of the window is in focus. It's taken from someplace reasonably close, and it's very difficult to imagine that heavy work at that site would not create a very audible sound over at that particular location. You do have to look at the photograph from a little bit of a forensic perspective.
Mark?
Yeah, let me just say that we made an honest effort to identify the catchment area. And if there are a few that we missed, we're more than happy to include them and, make the determination as to whether they're green or blue, and be fair about it. This is very important to us. We want to be fair, and we're happy to include those that may have been missed.
Thank you.
And I'm very appreciative that Chaz is willing to come out and help be the arbiter of what units should be included in the compensation plan.
let me be clear. I'm not judge and jury here. My job is to help give the select board is saying, and I think justifiably so, we don't live here. We don't know what's going on. We don't have a sense of what is impacted and what isn't. My goal in going down and speaking with residents and getting a sense of the site is to have a better sense of that, answering that question. So two points here. One is, I want the focus of this to remain the community, the impacted community. And that's a big portion. That's the reason I want to go down and see who those folks are and how, we can help them. And the other is, the ultimate decision is obviously the decision of the select board. My job is just to provide them with additional information so that they have a more complete picture of what's out there. So I do think that I'm happy to do that. Again, if that's something that residents would like, I'm happy to go down and we can have that discussion while you are pending at ZBA, and this is continued if that's the decision the select board makes.
I'm amenable to that proposal. Any other select board members? John?
I'm amenable to that proposal too. And if I may, I just want to point out something that I'm sure, others have already thought of. We could, with the monetary amount that's on the table right now, and with an agreement as to, maybe there should be an addition of a couple of units, 2, 3, 4, whatever, to the affected area group, we could end up attracting, sufficient support from those units that there would be, a substantial number of people who stand to get satisfactory mitigation from this in the form of financial compensation up to $4,000 per unit. But there could be even equal or more, people who will be outside. They'll be there's always going to be a next unit over, and I think we do owe it to ourselves and to the parties here to kind of make up our minds, not that we have to declare ourselves tonight, but we do have to make up our minds as to whether, if there can be satisfaction reached with the people in the colored areas, blue and green, that is enough, that it's not going to suddenly become an issue of, well, now they're satisfied, but now we got to have more hearings to see, who else wants to get compensated. And so I think that part of it, we all should at least try our best to, come to some kind of conclusion in our minds as to what will we be prepared to say yes if there can be satisfactory mitigation for those who are in the blue and green areas, and also satisfactory agreement as to additional units to be added to the blue and green areas.
This is why we get paid the big bucks.
That's right.
Our decisions. Any further comments before I move for continuation? Mike?
I was just going to move continuation. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Continuation, let's have our town administrator work with residents and CHR to come back and brief the board about another proposal allowing them to go before the ZBA. All those in favor of that course of action, please say aye. Bernard?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Miriam?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you so much for your willingness to work on this.
Thanks for your
Thank
time.
you. We appreciate it.
The next agenda item is our town clerk. I understand that we have an election coming up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Joining you live from the high school auditorium where we're getting ready for our town meeting, which we got to deal with first so that we can get on to the election. Before I started, I wanted to just extend my thanks to the chair for all the work that she's done, for her leadership and her mentorship, and on behalf of the entire town clerk's office, wish her well in her future endeavors, and we look forward to you joining us as a future poll worker at one of our upcoming elections.
I'll take you up on that.
There are 3 votes for the board for tonight, which are all related to the upcoming May annual town election. If it is okay with the board, just for the sense of expediency, I'm going to just quickly talk about all three so that you guys can then run with the ball. The first is to actually set the date for the town election. Under the town bylaw, it must be set for either the first or the second Tuesday in May. Traditionally, elections, including the town election, of course, the presidential elections, state elections, and state primaries have always been held on the Tuesday after the first Monday in May. So that is the date the town clerk's office is recommending, May 2nd, for the actual annual town election. Additionally, in the vote are the offices that will be on the ballot, which must be listed so that we can make nomination papers available in the coming weeks for those who would like to run for those positions. Also on the docket is a vote for early voting for the annual town election. The Votes Act that was passed over the summer required early voting for state primaries and state elections and made it optional for a local municipal election. We've not done early voting in municipal elections before, but in the spirit of increasing opportunity, allowing more people to engage in the political process, it's our recommendation to have early voting in person for this May town election. Our recommendation is to do it at the same level as a primary election, which is 1 week starting the Saturday, 2 Saturdays, 10 days before the election, running through the Friday before the election, the same hours, 6 hours on the weekend, and then during the regular business hours during the week. Within that vote is a opportunity for the town clerk to increase the amount of early voting we can have. The reason why it is in there as a may and not a shall is due to some of the constraints we are currently experiencing around supply chain issues for the equipment we utilize for early voting and some of the logistical specifics we're working on with the library to ensure that we can use their locations to expand early voting. So assuming all of those things fall into place, our plan is to have early voting at Town Hall all 7 days, as well as offer at least 1 day each at the Coolidge Corner Library and the Putterham Library to increase access. The final vote is from the Votes Act. The Select Board now has the authority to appoint police details. That authority used to fall solely with the Chief of Police. It is our recommendation to appoint the same police details for Election Day we have done in the past, 1 police detail for every precinct, as well as additional ones for traffic control at a couple of locations, the normal police details at Town Hall on Election Day, as well as a police detail during early voting, just to ensure safety and security of the elections. Police officers have been invaluable doing their role both as officers enforcing election laws, but also helping to translate for voters, helping wardens carry around signs and set things up properly for a polling location. And this recommendation comes with the support of the chief, whom I thank for lending me a tremendous group of officers on Election Day. So those are the 3 votes that are before you, and I welcome any questions that you may have.
So before I open it up to other board members, we've kind of been down this road before. So the things that I'm keeping in mind when making this decision is staff is furiously working on the override ask of residents. The other thing to balance is the time in between the election and new town meeting members to get up to speed with what I can only assume will be yet another very long town meeting. So how much time do we want to give those folks? And then the other thing to keep in mind is a lot of voters expect this to be the first Tuesday of the month of May. That's what they're conditioned to think. So keep those things in mind. Anyone want to speak about this request?
I do, but I can't figure out how to raise my hand on my phone right now.
Miriam, just go for it.
I'm so brain fried right now, but thank you. Thank you very much for this. I'm very excited to be supporting, especially the early voting, because I agree with you. It really increases access and availability. I'm just wondering if any of the polling locations are changed from the last election. Thank you.
That is a great question. At this point, we do not plan on moving any polling locations. They will be the same as the November election. Again, in the interest of consistency, we try to move those polling locations as little as we can. And as of right now, we don't have any plans to move them for the May election.
Great. Anyone else? Oh, Mike.
Thanks, Heather. Not directly related to this, but what's the deadline for putting the override questions on the ballot then?
So the legal deadline is 35 days before Election Day, which in the case of a May 2nd election would be March 28th. With the things that are coming up, especially under Article 2, that's going to be heard tonight, there will probably be some recommendation coming either from the town administrator's office or town council's office about moving that timeline up to give enough space to get information out to voters.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else on the board? So let's have a discussion. Are we going with the first Tuesday or the second? I'll go first. I think we should go with the first Tuesday, but I am willing to be amenable. Miriam?
I concur. I think the first Tuesday is fine.
Bernard?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if first Tuesday was the first day of the month, maybe that would be a reason not to go with it. But, you know, second day of the month, I think is perfectly fine. I don't know why we need to put off the vote any further than that. We run into town meeting, among other things.
Well, let's hear the counter. Maybe Chaz has something to offer.
I mean, it'll be tight, but it's gonna be tight no matter what. You know, would we like more time? We always like more time. But we're making good progress in terms of building out the bones of a potential override and the structure of that. And I hope to have more updates for you sooner rather than later on that front. It has been a very productive conversation. And I just had actually a very good conversation at the start of the week with the superintendent regarding the school's position on this. And I think we're going places slowly but surely. So will we like more time? Yes, we'd love more time. Do we, is that counterbalanced by the concerns that you raised? It's entirely up to you. We will not drop dead if you schedule it for the first Tuesday, but it's more work.
Well, those are the magic words for me. Any further discussion?
I was asked to remind you that after this, you do need to set town meeting.
Oh, yes. Yes. So let me just read the language and make sure that I have the language that we need to vote on. So what I have right now is moving to set the dates for the 2023 annual town meeting and the town election, including the early voting locations and approval of the police details for the 2023 annual town meeting. Is there anything missing from that? Ben is shaking his head no. So I'm going to blame you if we have to revisit this next week.
I want to clarify, nothing on the elections front. I defer to Melissa about town meeting.
Okay, well, let me move that language while Melissa tries to get her attention if there's other. Bernard?
Yeah, let me just add, I mean, I think that the earlier the better in general, but maybe I wasn't thinking about the time that is needed to sort of tee up the override questions and other things. And the balance against that is the fact that we do want to let our new board have a little time before town meeting. I mean, if it's the second week in May, there's less time for the new select board people and the new select board to really get ready for what's going to be an intense town meeting. So I don't know. It's half 6 of one, half dozen of the other. So.
Yep. Unlike in school, there are no clearly right answers.
Never were right answers where I went to school.
Melissa, do you have anything that you're concerned about? Anything that I didn't cover in the motion? Oh, no, you don't have audio.
There we go. I think we just need to make sure that the election is one separate vote and then town meeting is the other. And I can kind of talk about the dates that we've got kind of scheduled for town meeting.
Okay,
Whenever
so
you're
is
ready.
the language that I said to get us through the election stuff? Setting the dates for the annual town meeting and town election, or should I take them separately?
Separately, I would vote them separately.
Okay. So, let's do the town election stuff first, which is, I move approval to assign police details as listed in the town clerk's memo and to approve the dates for the 2023 annual, the annual election, town election, for the first Tuesday in May, which is May 2nd. Do I have to outline the positions that are there? Probably not.
I believe if you say as detailed in the town clerk's memo, then that has all of that in there.
There you go.
As detailed in the town clerk's memo. Thank you, Ben. All those in favor? Bernard?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Mike? Miriam?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. And now the annual town meeting. Is it just one vote? Are we deciding on when to start town meeting?
So you're voting on the opening and closing dates for the warrant and then the date of town meeting. So you should have in your packet a tentative schedule that outlines the milestones for town meeting. We're looking to have the board open the warrant on February 9th, which is a Thursday, and then close it on March 9th at noon, which is also a Thursday. That would be 75 days before town meeting. So based on that date, that means the first day of town meeting is going to be May 23rd, which is the Tuesday. The schedule calls for 23rd and 24th. We're going to take the 25th off because the high school needs that room for their award ceremony. Then we'll come back the following week for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so 30, 31, and 1. And then if necessary, we'll come back the following week for another Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We will be back in person, so I'm hoping that maybe that will incentivize people to maybe move a little bit swifter, unless we have a change in legislation at this point. We're anticipating fully present town meeting at the high school pre-pandemic.
Wow. Okay. Any questions or comments about the dates that Melissa just outlined for the opening and closing of the warrant and the start dates of the annual town meeting? Seeing none, I will move approval of the dates that Melissa outlined for the opening and the closing of both the warrant and the dates of the annual town meeting for 2023. All those in favor? Bernard?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Miriam?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you, both Ben and Melissa. And good luck at town meeting, Ben.
I'll see you all in a few minutes.
So with 12 minutes to spare, we have our last agenda item. Our town administrator will give us an update on the police chief search process.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as detailed in the memo, I won't, just rehash it. I'm very fortunate that to have a group of citizens advising me on this very important selection, and to have a process that we have developed that is going to be fair and transparent and efficient in bringing you, the board, a candidate for permanent chief of police. it's going to involve, so let me first, just so for everyone knows, the citizens who have been very gracious in volunteering their time to serve on this advisory panel are Karen Ambrose, a town meeting member and member of the Police Commissioners Advisory Committee, C. Scott-Ananian, town meeting member and also member of PCAC, Jocelyn Murphy, town meeting member and member of the Advisory Committee, Mike Sandman, a select board member, and Abba Taylor, the new director of the Brookline Community Foundation. This is a great group of people who are really dedicated to this question. They come from different walks of life and different political backgrounds, but I think what they share among them is a willingness to be open-minded and to consider all candidates fairly to come up with the best option for Brookline. And that is really what I am hoping to hear from them as they advise me on the selection of a candidate to present to you. Process itself, the posting will open tomorrow. For expedited consideration, applicants should get their packing of materials in by February 1st. During the month of February, the team will work with me on a 2-round structure that includes 3 different exercises. We will make a selection of candidates we'd like to hear more from. We will invite those candidates to conduct a written exercise, which will be graded blind. Which is to say the panel will look at the responses and they will have a standardized rubric to evaluate those responses, but they won't know who wrote what. Then those invited candidates will have an interview, and that interview will be conducted before the results of before they know who wrote what, again, before we all know. I will hasten to add that I'm going to grade this blind as well, so that we all come in with a clean slate talking to these candidates who we think are deserving of more consideration. Then there'll be a discussion about the candidates who we think should move on to the second round. The second round will be an interactive presentation. Will be styled as a select board presentation. It's really important, I think, given the emphasis that Brookline places on community interaction and community policing, for this candidate that we present to you to be very strong on their feet and responsive to difficult questions that a 5-person select board and members of the public can ask at hearings that can get contentious on topics that can be very hot button. And so that process, I think, will be very helpful to us in evaluating a final candidate. We will take the candidates' submissions as a whole. I will ask the team to provide me with recommendations. Ultimately, it is my decision, but I really am grateful again for the recommendations of the group, and I want to make sure that we take that very seriously in presenting a final candidate to you. Before we move on to actually presenting that candidate, I'll meet with them one-on-one to discuss the makeup of the department, the issues that they see. It will just also, it will effectively be a fit interview, right? The last sort of, are there identifiable red lines or issues that have not for some reason come up in the process that we need to consider? We are being very diligent in this time around about reference checks and background checks. And that includes ensuring that in reaching out to references and providing background checks that we are talking to people from different parts of a candidate's background. One of the things that we heard as a potential failing in the process from last time was, oh, well, we had 18 references, but how many of them were women? And the answer was 0. Regardless of a candidate's background, we will be seeking a diverse range of reference checks and ensuring that the background checks are comprehensive in that regard. I also want to just add, I appreciate Mr. Rosenthal's comments, although I think unfortunately he accidentally, it's hard to disprove the point, but he is saying, you can't please everyone, and saying, well, I'm displeased with your memo. I think you unfortunately proved my point, Marty. The question of, well, should internal candidates be given preference? Should internal candidates be this or that? We are not doing a nationwide search this time. We are not going out looking as we did last time. What I've been saying to people is we will happily evaluate qualified candidates regardless of background. But we have told the department and eligible candidates in the department that we expect them to apply. I never want us to, to overlook a golden opportunity if something so happens to present itself. So I am not voluntarily discounting any option at this stage, because I don't think that's the right way to go about a search like this. But I am saying that we are cognizant of the community's needs and the community's responses to the questions that have been asked both the last time around and this time around. And we will take that into consideration when presenting a final candidate to you. So that's that. I want to add one more thing. I'm very grateful. Judge Fabricant, who is the chair of PCAC, has invited me to appear at the next meeting, which is on January 30th. And I'm very excited to attend that public meeting. And I view that as an opportunity to talk with both PCAC and the broader community about, questions that they may have, questions that they may want to be asked of candidates. And reflection on the very exhaustive process that happened last time around to develop the position description and posting, so that we can be confident going into this process in 2023 that we again have our finger on the pulse of what the community wants us to ask and present a candidate that will be the most effective and appropriate candidate to lead the Brookline Police Department at this time. That's it for me.
Thank you so much, Chaz. Any comments from select board members? We did have to mute you because we were getting some background noise. Bernard?
Yeah, despite what I think is a reasonable process, of course, I have some concerns given our history. That history, as you all know, was included great pressure on the process to go outside the department. I think unreasonable pressure, and we know how that ended out or turned out. We did searches, and I think it was 2014. I was on that committee where we selected Chief Lipson to replace Chief O'Leary, and then last year, where we ended up with Chief Gonzalez. So I think that, we know pretty much not only everyone in the national pipeline, but also everyone in the local pipeline. And, I think that, we know, what our internal candidates are. We've already checked them out in terms of their background and all that. And a lot of people are pushing for the appointment of an internal candidate, particularly Jen Pastor. And frankly, I agree. I think we've really gone through sufficient over those years of searching nationally, locally, et cetera, sufficient investigation to know who would make the best sense for Brookline. That's just my opinion, but I wanted to put that out there.
And I appreciate that. And I should say you're not alone in that opinion. I've heard that from many people. I've also heard, the countervailing argument, which is, not so much, oh, we shouldn't do that, but we need to be more deliberate in this, even more deliberate in this process. Some people have said, oh, you got to go back and redo the candidate profile. You got to have another, you have to go back out to the community. You got to, you got to drag this out for more months. I don't think we should do that either. The thing I will say on this is, I am very amenable to hearing the community's desires and concerns, and I am not susceptible to pressure either way on this. And the reason why I say that is because I want whoever the candidate is on day one to have the full faith and backing of the board and of me, so that they know, for all the back and forth and the high drama that can accompany these processes, that they on day one have 100% support, and I have their back, you have their back. And that there is no dissenting, oh, well, we didn't do this the right way kind of thing. The grumbling that can happen as a result of that can be discounted because we did do this the right way. And I think that's worth the process being what it is, which is a couple months, not ideal, but I think the payoff from that, which is that certainty, is really important for whoever the next permanent chief is going to be, because the department has a lot of important things that it needs to tackle in the next several years.
I will say that, I've been on the board almost as long as Bernard, and I too also was on the board when we had an internal candidate selected and then an external candidate selected. And both didn't work out. So, you know, I have to say, I am a little spooked. And I need a process so that I feel like we are kicking the tires. I need some sort of reassurance that whoever we choose respects the select board, which I haven't seen a whole lot of, quite frankly, in my time as chair. So it is what it is. Any other comments, John?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Bernard. The aspect of this that troubles me is that if we all, at the end of the day, come to a consensus on the same candidate, that's great. But if there are 3 select board members who have seen amply demonstrated the capability to lead this department and would like to advocate or like to advance that higher, and then we end up with a separate process that ends up with a different conclusion, then we've essentially, you know, left ourselves with a situation in which we may have undermined the person who takes the position from day one, you know, in taking the position, and compromised it. And I just think we got to be sensitive to that, and we've got to try not to get that result at the end of this process. I don't have a way of. I have no suggestion to make as to how you do that at the same time that you don't tilt, you know, or try to influence the process. But I think these are the kinds of discussions that sometimes, you know, we find ourselves realizing too late where we are in a process, and, you know, that we've set ourselves up for some possible less than ideal outcomes to the process. And I think that's maybe what's on Bernard's mind. I know it's on my mind very much. And that's why I made a point of saying that I appreciated Bernard's remarks.
So before I call on Mike Salmon, I will just say this kind of gets back to my earlier remarks, which is we're a part-time board and we have to trust the town administrator to be our eyes and ears during the day. And it is very clear from the Town Administrators Act that he or she controls who our police chief is. Does need the blessing of the select board, but you kind of have to make a decision at some point. Do you want to get into the operations of the town, or do you want a town administrator to do his or her job? Mike.
I think we should all stop talking about this and do just what you said, Heather. Let the town administrator do his job.
Chaz, thank you so much for the update.
Thank you.
That is the conclusion of our meeting, and we will see everyone at tonight's town meeting.